If you are watching this, I am already dead. Those are the chilling first words of an audio diary left behind by a patient who recently ended his own life in a state psychiatric ward. The official coroner's report concluded it was a straightforward suicide, but the narrator's final message insists on a very different reality. He claims a supernatural entity followed him back from a desolate forest, and that taking his own life was his only means of escape. To understand how we got here, we have to look at how this story begins. It starts completely mundanely. Two friends, Sam and Ryan, are exhausted from long hours at the office. They set out on a late-night drive upstate to attend a wedding, already tired, stressed, and annoyed. Hoping to save time, they make a fateful decision. They turn off the well-lit safety of the main highway, navigating their car down an abandoned, pitch-black dirt and gravel logging road, deep in the pine forests of the Pacific Northwest. In storytelling, this immediately triggers the classic trope of isolation. By stepping off the grid, the characters' modern safety nets are instantly stripped away, priming both them and the audience for a descent into the unknown. Down this dirt road, the remaining comforts systematically fail. First, the radio dissolves into heavy static. Then, the car engine makes a violent grinding noise, suddenly boils over, and completely dies. Sam steps out of the car into an ancient, suffocating silence. As he opens the overheated hood, a massive cloud of steam explodes outward, and for a split second, he sees a distinct, shadowy figure standing directly in the smoke. Curious, analytical, this brings us to a fascinating clinical hypothesis. We have to ask, is this a true paranormal encounter, or are we watching a human brain react to extreme isolation? This diagram shows exactly what happens during sensory deprivation. When you place an exhausted person in an environment with near zero sensory input, like a pitch-black, silent forest, the brain struggles to process the sudden void. To compensate, the auditory and visual cortexes will often fabricate their own input, generating hyper-realistic auditory and visual hallucinations. Whether that shadow in the steam was a literal demon or just the trick of an oxygen-deprived, exhausted mind, the result is exactly the same. The narrator's grip on reality has cracked. From here, the terror rapidly escalates. Sam manages to restart the engine and hits the gas to escape, but suddenly, his headlights catch a humanoid figure standing dead center in the dirt road. He slams on the brakes, the tires lose traction on the gravel, and the car crashes violently head-on into a massive boulder. They survive the impact, but an unnatural technological blackout takes hold. Ryan pulls out his phone to call 911. It shows 0 bars, yet it starts ringing with a jarring digital tone. A blinding flash of light erupts from the screen, and the device permanently dies. Then comes the horrific climax. In the dark cabin of the wrecked car, Ryan slowly turns to Sam. His eyes roll back completely, turning pure white. He begins muttering in a terrifying, unnatural language and violently lunges at his friend. Pinned to his seat and suffocating, Sam is forced into a desperate fight. He escapes the vehicle, but the entity gives chase through the woods. Driven by pure terror, Sam grabs a heavy iron tire rod and beats his attacker until the man is entirely unrecognizable, before finally passing out in the dirt. This sequence weaponizes the psychological subversion of trust. The only source of safety and sanity the narrator had, his best friend, is abruptly transformed into an inescapable, lethal threat. But then, the setting shifts entirely. Sam wakes up under harsh fluorescent lights. He is in a hospital bed, where a doctor and a police officer walk in to inform him he has been in a coma for a week. When Sam tries to explain the demonic attack and the crash, the police reveal a massive, shattering contradiction. They found his car neatly parked on the side of the highway without a single scratch. And after searching miles of woods, there was absolutely no trace of his friend. When the physical world refuses to acknowledge a single detail of the narrator's story, we're left with a collapse of objective truth. Every memory we've just witnessed is suddenly thrown into doubt. As this logic tree illustrates, we are left with a terrifying dual reality. In Timeline A, A demonic entity perfectly erased all physical evidence of the attack to further isolate the narrator. In Timeline B, the narrator suffered a severe psychotic break and hallucinated the entire supernatural context. When an act is too horrific to process, the brain constructs protective delusions, building a literal monster to shield the psyche from murder. The horror shifts inward. The survival of the narrator now depends entirely on a mind he can no longer trust. The story concludes months later in a locked psychiatric ward. The isolated narrator wakes up in the middle of the night to a massive drop in temperature. Standing right beside his bed is the smiling, white-eyed entity, still wearing his dead friend's face. The apparition leans in close and whispers that this is just the beginning. Believing he has no other escape from the torment, the narrator takes his own life. From a clinical perspective, this final visitation aligns with the trajectory of a severe psychological collapse. The entity's return serves as a terminal hallucination, a final, total breakdown of the narrator's internal map of reality. This perfectly illustrates the power of the dual reality framework. The most memorable horror stories are the ones that aggressively withhold definitive, objective answers. The true horror of that logging road is the profound fragility of human consciousness. Because whether the threat was an ancient demon or a sudden chemical misfire in the brain, the terror the narrator experienced was entirely real. Which leaves us to answer his final question. Was it all just a hallucination? Or is there truly something waiting out there for you in the dark?